Okay, so the leadership module, getting fit for the future. I'm going, if I may, Hannah, to increase the tempo a little bit. I've got this notion that we might all be melting out there somewhere. So I'm going to go a bit quicker to get us through this and get to any Q&A. So I'm going to go a bit quicker than we originally scheduled. Next slide, please. Okay, so 4 pillars of leadership, the Aston 4 pillars, we'll go through them quickly. Strategy. If you haven't got a strategy, either written or verbally expressed, you're hiding from your leadership responsibilities or you're being neglectful. So we talk a lot about strategy, more of which in a moment. Discipline, not telling people off or punishing them, but having the self-discipline to have the rigor to keep your eye on the other parts of business whilst you're dealing with something that's either attractive or a distraction or the latest hot potato. As the leader, we've got to keep the business focused on all those things we spoke of earlier, the politics, the economy, technology, all the time. Bottom left there, stakeholder engagement. It's no good doing a great job if you're not engaging the stakeholders. Who are they? It's not just the shareholders, of course. It's those that you employ. It's those who are the customers. It's those in the supply chain. It's those who are the competition, who we're all going to stay engaged with. So strategy, a business discipline, strategy, including, of course, plans and objectives, discipline, keeping an eye on everything we should, stakeholder engagement, and bottom right, managing in crisis. Being the calm, considered, compassionate, believable, authentic leader when a global crisis comes to town. There's some examples in the bottom right hand corner. Of course, in current classes or in last year's classes, we were debating the Brexit leadership. Of course, we'll debate the COVID leadership going forward. Next slide, please. So a quick run through the strategy bit, 4 pillars within pillar number 1, starting with where are we? That's the stock take. Where are we as a business in the political landscape, in the competition? How much market share do we have? What do our books look like? What are our costs, overheads? It's the stock take. Where are we? The next one, where do we wish to be? That's the vision. What do we want to be when we've grown up? It's about looking forward and deciding what new products we're going to bring to market, what market share we want. Point 3, how should we get there? That's our plans. That's our empowerment. That's our creation of a competitive culture. And then lastly, how shall we know we've arrived? Point 4 of one of 4 points. How shall we know we've arrived? That's the measurement of success. There are many in history who've declared victory before they've achieved it. Doesn't always work. So measuring that you've succeeded is key to strategy. So 4 points to strategy. Where are we? Where do we wish to be? How shall we get there? How do we know we've arrived? Next slide, please. That discipline piece. So you can be in awe of the brand new, shiny, new creation. Or you can be agog at the threat that's come into you can be the startled rabbit in the headlights, but you can't be that as a leader. We have to be aware of our duty to all our stakeholders. The 7 requirements that the Companies Act requires directors to deliver, what the law requires, our duty and the law. We must be aware of all risks and opportunities, so horizon scanning for things that could challenge us, looking for new developments, so constantly doing that, not just veering and hauling from the latest threat or disaster that's fallen upon us. Many of you will have heard the phrase, a poor culture eats good strategy for breakfast, and I believe that. So it's the leader's job to nurture the strategy, nurture the culture, just like a garden. You have to nurture it, you have to water it, you have to look after it. So that involves our engagement, which we'll go on to into a minute, but also leading by example, demonstrating the culture that you wish, the values you wish your company to have, and a culture of buy-in, a culture that welcomes challenge, a welcome that provides for inclusivity, a welcome that a culture that welcomes someone disagreeing with you, however uncomfortable it might make you feel. And you might think they're wrong 9 times out of 10. But that lady who's just challenged you might be right on the 10th occasion. It might be the game changer that enables you to go forward with your vision and your success. And having a culture that accepts that is so vitally important. And of course, engagement, how to engage, how to create a narrative, how to create the right messages, how to reach out to your audiences, how to identify your audiences, how we should reach out and get their attention and influence their behaviors. So we talk about these in our classes and we practice them. We do practicals, we do case studies, we do scenarios, we give people situations to deal with. It becomes very interactive. So even when we do this online, as we do with our TWI3 cohort, we will do all of this online and it's very interactive. Can't just sort of hide behind a switched off camera because we only learn by joining in, don't we? So the duty and the law, risks and opportunities, culture and engagement. I'm going to keep the tempo going, Hannah, because I'm melting. Next slide, please. So engagement, pillar number 3 that we spoke of there. Very important to understand. Another 4 points here, another 4 things we go through in our classes. So stakeholder mapping is vitally important. Who are our stakeholders? We used to just worry about shareholders. And of course, they're not the only stakeholders. Our stakeholders will include our employees' families, our neighbours, the neighbours who are living next door to our plant, those who our vehicles might impede their movement in local roads. Shareholders, those who own the company, those who own the companies that own the company. So a myriad of stakeholders, a myriad stakeholders for us to be aware of, to understand what their interests are and how are we going to engage with them. So it's no good having a meeting and if you don't know what you're going to say. So having a narrative and understanding what it is your business is about and what messages you wish to share, meaningful, memorable messages that will stick in people's minds. As executives, we tend to hear about 100 to 150,000 words per day. About 90% of them we forget by tomorrow. So having the memorable messages that people will remember and act upon the next day is all about having the right narrative and the right messages and how to do engagement. When human being invented the printing press, we thought it'd be easy. We thought we'd write it all down and just send it out and life will be fine. Then we invented the telegraph and we thought, well, we can just digitally send the messages and it'll be fine. But they started sending things back on the same wires, unfortunately. Then television, then radio, and then of course the bearer of them all, the internet, which means that everybody can talk to everybody else about everything all of the time, 24/7, 365. The competing narratives are running all the time. So the investment you place in the quality of your narrative and message is so important. You might have the best product, but if no one knows about it, failure awaits you. So having the right message and putting it on the right medium. Where are your stakeholders listening? They're busy people. They don't want to be having to swipe, well, they don't have to be searching for your message all the time. And if you bored them, they'll just swipe right and move on to the next communicator. And you have to measure effects of your engagement as well. Hopefully on your bottom line, but also to check that your engagement is effective. So that's an important part of our studies. I commend it to you. Next slide, please. So leading in crisis, the 4th pillar of leadership in our framework. So when a crisis occurs, you need to revision your organization. What is your vision for survival? What does good look like on the other side of this crisis as far as your business is concerned? It may be that your original vision does no longer meet the context in which you currently are. So having a quick revision to make sure you understand your survival plans is important. In doing so, you should determine what must be protected. What is it about your business that's vital? What is the unique thing that you're offering? Or what's the new thing you might be offering in the new context? What must be protected? This is what stops us throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Having done those two, we have to work out those stakeholders again and engage them and reassure them and inform them what we're doing, lest they forget or abandon us and then empower, 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 trust, trust, trust your people to go and fight the good fight and to deliver through the whatever crisis has emerged. So this is really where we change mode as leaders. We might become a bit authoritarian as we deal with the immediate crisis, and then we thank people for the trust they put in us and re-empower them and inspire them to take the business forward. It's not something to do without practice, I commend to you, and that's what we provide in our crisis exercise. Next slide, please. So we run a crisis instance so we don't become the picture of the bloke in the bottom right-hand corner with our hair on fire, wondering what to do. So as David said, our classes, our lessons are with colleagues. This is interactive learning. We learn as much as you do. And we create a boardroom scenario. An incident is briefed. Everyone's got a role to play. You might be the managing director or the financial director or the comms director or ops director. And you live out to the best of your ability dealing with that crisis. So we'll situate, and you might not, like all executives, you'll be busy that day. You'll have other things in mind. And that's how crises fall upon us. And we have to change our diaries and we have to get on with dealing it. So we put you in that scenario, having had some learning already, so that we can practice this. And it's worth every penny. It's absolutely priceless to practice this before it happens for real. So we avoid being a gentleman in the bottom right-hand corner. Next slide, please, Hannah. I'm going to keep going at pace. So we situate, so a company happens to be Hotspur PLC in our current scenario. And we assign you to roles, as I just said, managing director, ops director, HR director, all important roles. And we may not just, if you've got experience as a comms director, it may not be the role that you get. So you don't grow in your comfort zone. So we must grow outside our comfort zone and enjoy doing it. It's fun. We do this with, although people who do this exercise, they're melting whatever the temperature, because that's what it's like. But we just keep it going enough so we get the learning points out and get fully immersed in the scenario. It's great fun, by the way. It's absolutely great fun. Next slide, please. So we go up to a boardroom, and of course, in the current environment, we have virtual boardrooms, just like you would in your businesses right now. So we either have a real boardroom at your venue or our venue. We create boardrooms, or we create a virtual boardroom where we leave you to it. And we dip in and out, and we role play, and we have other people come in and play other characters in the scenario to the best of our abilities. Sometimes it might be me in disguise, but we get other people to join in. It's lots of fun, and we learn these experiences. We could tell you about it till the cows come home, but it doesn't sink in unless you get to practice it, and it is priceless, folks. Really valuable session. Next slide, please. Okay, so it's immersive learning. So people you may have previously seen doing a newscast on Sky TV may appear in the boardroom or appear in a meeting room, or may appear on your TV screen, on your computer screen, to interview you. And you might think, oh, I don't want to do that. Well, you really don't want to do it for real as a leader without having practiced. So I really commend it to you. Or it might be a BBC journalist who rings you up, albeit on our behalf, and interviews you of what you're doing with the latest crisis at Hotspur PLC. And we get an enormous amount of learning out of that. So former or current Sky or BBC journalists help us with this practice, and it's a really special part of our program for you. Immersive learning. The whole thing's immersive. As David said during his description of the course, this is about things you can immediately put back into practice in the workplace when you get there. This is not about memorizing theory. This is about practicing, exercising, and then putting it into place in the workplace straight away. And as a bonus, you get a master's degree at the end. How good's that? It's fantastic. Next slide, please. Okay, so during the task, these are the sort of skills we look to develop. And so your teamwork skills, your leadership skills. Leadership is not just about shouting and ordering people what to do, of course. It's about inspiring, why they should do things for other people. Communication always features on leaders' lists of things that are important. Decision-making skills. How we decide in crisis is different to how we decide things routinely, or when we're doing bureaucratic tasks. We've got to decide our priorities, what's most important to us. We've got to be diligent and attend the facts and the details. We can't just make things up. Or if we might just handle things, I think it was one of the travel companies, very tragically, 2 young children died abroad. Might have been Thompson's, I think, or Thomas Cook, Thompson's probably. And they went with the legal advice, just denying any responsibility. They showed no emotion for the loss of life. Of course, their company fell through the floor as a result of that. So making the right decisions about the right communications can make or break your company. Being diligent about the facts. What are you preserving? You might be preserving your reputation. Of course, you're looking after your reputation. It might have taken you 40 years to build your reputation. It'll take you 4 seconds to lose it. So we exercise all of these. We create the scenario so we can all practice it in a fun way. And after it all, we'll have a great big laugh afterwards and watch some of the video clips and outtakes that luckily won't feature on the BBC News, but they feature for us all to learn from. And of course, we have to make planning assumptions as well. We can't always just wait until we've got 100% data. We've got to get on because things are happening at pace. So lots to learn. Next slide, please. So the sort of things we learn is it's all about people, of course. Buildings don't have a lot of feelings. It's all about people. As I've spoken already, stakeholders, not just shareholders. And I've spoken already about all the variety of stakeholders that we'll look after. Knowing the difference between your vision and your mission. Where do we wish to be and what is our purpose? Knowing what we're defending, what am I prepared to lose? And sometimes as leaders, she might have to make the decision that's difficult. Of course, they're going to be difficult decisions. We might have to let part of the business go to preserve the core of the business so it can fly again. And these are difficult decisions for her to make, but make them she must from the best informed position she can get to. And what is our center of gravity? It's a military term. It means what's the most important thing to us. It may not necessarily be the thing we're defending, but our center of gravity might be our customers' faith in our integrity. Might be something to do with our reputation. And customers can be fickle. We learn to deal with facts and data because, of course, we see all the data we put into the exercise and we see all the data you put out of it. So we can deal with, and so we must be first with the truth. When I was Director of Air Operations in Afghanistan, I worked for a particular American general who came up with 10 commandments. And one of them was be first with the truth. So largely our bomber pilots would drop bombs where they were supposed to. They practiced for it every day, that's what they could do, but occasionally it would go wrong. And we had to be truthful as quickly as possible. Because those that would have ill upon us can create all sorts of scenes of hospitals being bombed or schools being bombed if we're not first with the truth. So we learn that a lie becomes part of the future, the truth becomes part of the past. And if you lie, you have to remember it forever. Knackering. But if you tell the truth, it's just there, so you can use it. So I've rushed through this a bit, folks, but I'm kind of gathering that I kind of sense everyone's melting a bit. So we're going through it at pace. Next slide, please. So here he is, General David Petraeus, one of America's finest ever American generals, who went on to be head of the CIA. And his mantra was, one of his many mantra, and many American servicemen felt that he could count to infinity and back twice, could leap tall buildings, be first with the truth, even on a bad day. Regrettably, and he had a massive reputation, regrettably he forgot his own mantra when he denied having a relationship with his biographer rather than his wife. And he denied it, and he lost his reputation in seconds. Reputation that had been earned over 40 years, lost it in seconds. So there's a takeaway for you. Be first with the truth, even on a bad day. Next slide, please. So I'm handing back to you now, David, to go through a little bit ahead of time schedule here, but I think it's in the best interest of everyone overheating. So next, over to you, David. you.